And it was Bridges and Melo who put on an absolute show. And of course, we're going to celebrate the victors because they played a good game, especially Bridges and Melo. Bridges putting up numbers. But Jalen Anthony Rose, what is going on with the Brooklyn Nets, who many, myself included, consider them to be the favorite to win the Eastern Conference?
And as you know, like you said, we're going to pay homage to our guys. Nephew Melo out there balling, flirting with a triple-double. The ball got energy. Kelly Oubre running the floor. Our guy Miles Bridges willing to dunk on anybody who's in the way, shooting threes. They ball, and we had Coach on the show as well. You know that's our League Pass squad. We'll get to them later. Now let me talk about the Nets for a minute. You know who helped get them to Brooklyn? Sean Carter. Shout to my Rock fam. Hove. And by the way, they need to put a statue of Biggie in front of the building. We've been talking about this for 10 years. I need for that to happen. So let me get this right. You're the Nets. You got KD going for over 30. Jay-Z and OG Juan sitting front row to watch LaMelo. Just think about that. To watch somebody on the other team because they were the attraction and they showed up and balled. Do James Harden play for the Nets?
I think so.
I want to ask you a question. Do James Harden play for the Nets? Because
I think so.
He don't look interested in doing so to me. Not yet. When I'm seeing James Harden have more turnovers than free throw attempts, he out there walking.
One free throw attempt. One free throw attempt.
Was James Harden on the top 75 players of all time?
Absolutely. Deservedly so.
Okay, so this is his prime. So this is where, like, it's tough to put players that are active on lists like this because I need to see it every night. James Harden, Anthony Davis, for example. And the other thing, you know what else I'm seeing? James Harden looking at KD like, that Kyrie thing, that's your man. That's your man. Y'all work that out. And so he looks disinterested even being a part of it. KD the one now that got to go to the podium and talk about Kyrie is not walking through the door and saving the day like Rick Pitino said about Larry Joe Bird. And James Harden, if you notice, ain't no sound bites of him talking about it. He's like, y'all work that out. Because what I now see is James Harden don't look happy out there on the floor. By the way he's playing, I don't care what's coming out of his mouth. I know he said, I want to be there, I'm invested, I'm here for the long term. He said all of the right things. But I'm a major James Harden fan, fam, and a fellow lefty. I've seen this dude put up supersized triple doubles. This time last year, he was showing up in camp out of shape because he wanted out of Houston. It took 9 games for it to happen. Shout to Jalen Green hitting 8 threes yesterday. I love his game. But now you're going to start the season without Kyrie on cruise control? Like, I thought I was about to see James Harden. I thought it was scary hours. Did Miles Bridges look scared?
No.
Oh, okay. Did Melo look scared?
No.
Oh, okay. Show me. I'm a huge fan. I need to see James Harden show back up. I don't know who that is. That ain't James Harden.
Well,
that ain't the person that got his number currently retired in Houston. That ain't him. They gonna need him.
That's a really good point about James Harden, but you always also point out their front court is the true problem with this team. You can have Kyrie back. The way they've played just in these 3 games, they don't look like they're Kyrie Irving away from a championship team because of what's going on in the front court. When you look at the production that they get on both ends of the floor, especially defense, from their front court, we always talk about the age of the Lakers. Look at this front court. Blake Griffin, Paul Millsap, LaMarcus Aldridge, Nicholas Claxton is young, but Jalen, they're not going to win a championship with these 4 defending the rim and trying to get you buckets and rebounds.
When did you decide that? I tried to tell you that they weren't going. There are people walking the face of the earth that's like, this Nets team gonna win the East without Kyrie. I tried to tell y'all, that ain't happening. That is not happening. I'm trying to tell, there are people walking the face of the earth like, since they got KD and Harden, they about to win the East without Kyrie. They're
That's
not
me.
going to be
That's
able to
me.
do it.
That's
They're
me.
not going to be able to do it. And by the way, and I picked KD as my preseason MVP with Giannis. Like, it's a team game. Put their bigs back up there. And you look at yesterday's game, and you'll say, well, they didn't have Blake Griffin. Newsflash, Blake Griffin has been injury-prone for a lot of his career. So it ain't no surprise that they didn't have Blake Griffin. First off. Second, Paul Millsap is just a seasoned vet. You know, God bless his soul. He doing what he can at this point in his career. Keep getting them checks. Nicholas Claxton, I mean, he's a young fella. He can rim run. He can shot block. I love his activity. But right now, he lighting the cakes for some of the people he going to have to face. And LaMarcus Aldridge killed in the previous game. Yeah, over 20, he was making shots. But, man, that's a lot to ask for a guy that was retired last year for health issues. Like, that front court right there ain't beat nobody. They got to outscore people. And the only way you outscore people is insert one of the greatest scorers in the game, Kyrie Irving, to go with James Harden. Not the version that's playing right now, but the James Harden that has been all NBA, that's one of the top 75 players of all time, to go with KD, and then they can win the East. But everybody out there coming into the year like, oh, they going to win the East without Kyrie? That's crazy talk.
Well, we will see. All I know is, Kyrie, get vaccinated, my guy. Get vaccinated. They need you. They need you. They need you out there. Just get the vaccine. Jalen.
Night in Brooklyn, outside of Barclays Center, before the Nets home opener versus the Hornets. About 100 people were in attendance to protest New York's vaccine mandate, with some in the crowd chanting, "Stand with Kyrie," in support of Kyrie Irving, who is unvaccinated, which is why he is currently not with the team. So we now welcome in Om Young-Masuk, who's covering the Nets for us. He was at Sunday's game in Barclays Center. And Om, we just saw video footage, and you were there. So what was the scene like on Sunday outside of the arena?
Malika, I was all up in that protest, getting out there, shooting video. And it's really kind of surreal, Malika. I think you know, having lived in New York City, this was actually a pretty diverse protest. There were old people, young people. I saw families with kids in their strollers. I saw, black, white. I even saw an old Asian lady. And they were all chanting, "Stand with Kyrie," and no vaccine mandate. It really kind of only got out of hand a little bit once, where a handful of protesters tried to barge their way through the front door, and they were stopped by Barclays security. But we're going to see tonight if those protesters come back. There was actually a protest today that walked across Brooklyn Bridge for municipal workers. They were protesting the vaccine mandate.
Interesting. I checked in with a Nets official, Om, and they said that any charges, any charges would have to be brought by police. The Nets are not going to be looking into that specifically. But I am curious, Om, how is Kyrie Irving's absence? How is that affecting Brooklyn?
So, look, Steve Nash kind of gave us a warning on Friday night after they won in Philadelphia, in which they needed a triple-double from Kevin Durant and to score 16 of the final 17 points to win. He said it's not going to be pretty for a while because he is still experimenting with rotations and lineups. And then we didn't think scoring would be an issue for these Nets. Only 2 Nets scored in double figures on Sunday in their loss to Charlotte. Kevin Durant and James Harden were the only ones to score in double figures. Afterwards, Kevin Durant was asked twice if the Nets have enough to win.
We definitely want Kyrie Irving out here on the floor, and he's a huge part of what we do, but it's not happening right now, so we got to figure it out. But nobody's going to lose confidence while we playing and hope Kyrie come and save us during the game. Nah, we got to play.
Malika, the Nets are in the second of a 6-game homestand, of which we don't think Kyrie Irving is going to be here anytime soon. So the Nets have to figure out how they are going to play without Kyrie Irving. This feels like preseason extended for Steve Nash and his team.
Interesting, Omen. You were standing in Barclays Center where they have a back-to-back the second half tonight where the Nets take on the Wizards. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us. We have a lot to unpack here with the Nets. Brooklyn lost that game to Charlotte and is now 1-2 on the season. So I definitely want to break this down a little bit on the court with Chiney Ogwumike and Richard Jefferson. And Richard, Chiney, you just heard Kevin Durant, and you heard him say that we're just not able to wait for Kyrie Irving. They can't sit around and wonder if and when he's going to come back. They'll just need to play, and they can't just be saved. So, Chiney, what's that going to take?
Well, we know that, Kevin Durant, when he wakes up, he's going to get buckets. Like, that's a fact, period.
Eats buckets for breakfast.
Thank you. And, their previous game, their last game, he was 17 for 24 from the field, a productive, normal night for Kevin Durant. The question is, how is everyone else going to hold it down? And if you look, Ohm just mentioned it, like 2 guys in total in double figures. That does not work in the NBA right now. Mind you, we know that the Nets are experimenting with rotations and their rosters,
Sure.
given that they're trying to find how to emerge out of this, liminal space. But we know KD's going to show up. James Harden probably needs to do a little bit more. He's been great in Brooklyn, leading with assists and trying to get everyone else going, but we kind of need a little bit more of Houston James. And then the supporting cast has to find their groove.
No, they do. And one of the things that you look around the league, the Phoenix Suns, the Denver Nuggets, the Utah Jazz, teams that have had their normal roster,
right.
They're going to have like a normal kind of trajectory of how they're going to play. Same with the Milwaukee Bucks.
Sure.
But then when you get to the Phoenix, or when you get to the Brooklyn Nets, you get to the Los Angeles Lakers, there's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of changes. There's been some like drama, especially up there in Brooklyn. They're going to figure it out. If there's anybody that questions Kevin Durant, he was an early MVP candidate. James Harden was one of the MVP favorites in the middle of the season last year. They're going to figure it out. They got new talent. They got guys back. So it's going to take a little bit of time.
And I do like that we saw LaMarcus Aldridge, a good game from him as
yeah.
well.
Right.
Like, they're going to find it, just will take some time.
And he's not playing tonight. He's resting on the second half of the back-to-back, but Kevin Durant is playing. He's expected to play, is available to play, at least as of right now, for this second half. So it sounds like what you're saying is, similarly to the Lakers, this is early days.
No, the
This is early
LaMarcus thing
days.
is like the Carmelo. It's great to see the vets contributing at a high level. You don't need it every night, but when they give it to you.
Right. Well, and similarly to Carmelo, you mentioned earlier the buy-in, right? Carmelo has not won, and that is furthering his want to be there, right? When you look at LaMarcus, what he went through last year, being forced to face retirement before he was ready, you can clearly tell that he wants to be there. This is something that he's going to be playing hard for. So another storyline from this game and the early part of the season is James Harden not getting to the free throw line as quickly as and frequently as he was in previous seasons. So Harden has only attempted 9 free throws through 3 games this season.
Wow.
So let's put that into comparison. 3 seasons prior to this one, that's a big difference. In the same span last season, Harden already had taken 36, so 36-3 free throws. In 2019, it was 48. So Brooklyn head coach Steve Nash believes this is because of the new rule change on the officiating where they say overt or abrupt or abnormal non-basketball moves, that's not okay.
He's unfairly become the poster boy of not calling these fouls. But some of them are definitely fouls still.
No matter how much of a big deal we try to make it, a foul is a foul. It's pretty simple. I feel like putting too much emphasis on rules, or not even rules, just certain people, to where you look at it as clear fouls. And but for me, you just got to keep going. No big deal.
I feel like I remember Steve Nash having some complaints about this when it came to Trae Young, but now that we're shifting, so is this a valid complaint from Nash?
It is a valid complaint because basically what happens, it's the stars. It's the stars, and then it trickles down to the rest of the league because you're talking about usage rate. So people were talking about Steph. They were talking about, Trae. They were talking about James Harden be the number 1 guy. So these are some of the plays that they are no longer calling fouls on for him. But James Harden is a multi-talented individual. If we're just focused on free throws, but some of these are missed. So he is getting unfairly targeted, and he just can't let that affect this game. Because look, he's just having a full-on conversation right now.
It's so easy to say that when this rule comes into effect, we're going to look at this man, James Harden, based on the public pressure that has been exuded through NBA fans saying, and you guys know I say it all the time, step back, free throw. You can laugh at me. Okay.
Yeah, I just want that.
Right? Free throw. And people felt some type of way, but it was effective for him in the position he was. That was the best option for the Rockets.
Sure.
And I will say this, Richard, as a hooper, we know in the locker room, what's the number 1 sign of a player being aggressive?
Free throws.
Getting to the free throw line. While James Harden is great at knocking down, threes and floaters, we saw a different kind of aggression when he kind of risked it all to come to Brooklyn. And so this year is different. There's a lot that's in the balance. And so I think it's a combination of the new rule and him trying to sort of feel out what this team looks like after having a season where he focused on passing first. But one thing I love about James Harden, that man can turn it on at any time.
Yeah, he's going to be fine. But this is, but to your point that you made earlier, this isn't just James Harden. The NBA isn't at an all-time low, so they've cut it all out, and that happens a lot when there's a big rule change or there's adjustments. You see this big shift, and then it slowly starts. The referees start to kind of get their rhythm because this is brand new for them also.
Well, and it's a pendulum swing, right? These players, they're smart. They learn these rules and they learn how to use them to their advantage, right? So you have seen players when the rule was a little bit different, when you didn't have this rule, learning how to contort and use their bodies and
much fun.
play to that rule. So there's an adjustment period there.
Yeah.
But players like James Harden, like Trae Young, like Steph Curry,
gonna
we
figure
saw
it
that
out.
they're going to figure it out. And whatever you think of the new rules, they're making an impact across the NBA. This season, teams are averaging 19.5 free throw attempts per game, which would be the lowest in any season in NBA history, as you alluded to, Richard. So let's switch gears a little bit. The team that beat the Nets.
Oh, the Hornets, let's go.
Richard, the Hornets are 3-0 for the first time in the history of the franchise. How are they doing it?
They're doing it through a team. First of all, my guy Bridges, I talked about him. He was my most valuable player of this weekend, 30 plus. And look, it's not just dunks. There's some sexy to it. If you guys are not watching the Charlotte Hornets, jump on board right now. They got swag. They got the drip. They got the dunks. They share the ball. They play a great brand of basketball. And Miles Bridges should be the Eastern Conference Player of the Week because he performed against a high-level opponent in Brooklyn. And that's one thing that I like, and I'm looking forward to watching them all year.
And he is the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, Janae.
Are you saying right now Charlotte is way too sexy?
They are sexy. They're too sexy.
But, like, you know where that's from, though?
Oh,
are you a lover boy?
No. I'm not a lover boy. No, I'm not certified.
My only point is they have two players that are in the top 3, I think, in plus minus, which shows that they're playing a good brand of basketball. But I just like to
see. I'm old enough.
I like
I'm old enough where it's right.